G'day YouTube, welcome back to my channel Bonsai Works. I'm David. Today we have a lovely Shimpaku juniper stock tree that has some nice movement in it. This belongs to a customer of mine. It's got lots of interesting features, got a couple of gins low down, got an interesting nabari, but it's a lot of pom-pom foliage, pom-pom branches, and a branch that starts pretty fair way up. Got a back branch as well that's in there, but this main branch here is quite heavy, quite full, and we need to deal with it with wiring and so on, but very pom-pomish. So we need to wire all that up, but it starts very high, and even that branch there is quite up high. Not much in the back, bit sparse, but we'll deal with that when the time comes. A lot of foliage at the top as well, which we'll need to deal with. So let's get stuck into how we're going to design this tree. So let's have a look at the most important part, is the nabari. This tree really only has that as the front, that I just picked out. That's pretty much the best, widest nabari with interesting roots to look at and work with. It's pretty good. I'll tip it forward so you can have a better look at that. See the width of that nabari is probably the best. Every other angle doesn't look as good, so we'll go with this as the front. Also has some nice looking trunk movement along there as well, which moves up to the tree. So let's have a look at this trunk. It's quite uninteresting. It's got some subtle movement, but really nothing too dynamic. And this straight part here and that straight part there is really problematic. So we're going to have to deal with that with this tree, especially with the front we're going to pick. We're going to have to use maybe some cranking down methods, some guy wires to bring it all down. Branching other than that is pretty good. It's all around, but it's quite high up, and that's where we have an issue. Now, to make this tree more dynamic, I need to change the planting angle. So I'm going to put a couple of chunks of wood on the right side, your right side, to try and make the bend more accentuated. Now this enables me to also be more creative in terms of what I'm going to do and how I can bend the tree back down upon itself, which is what I'm interested in doing. So at the moment the nabari looks better. It looks like the roots are holding on to the soil and really nice, forming a much more slant towards the left, and then that means I can actually try and bring the rest of the tree, this apex, all the way back down and to the right. So just shortening the tree, creating a bit more dynamic movement, and seeing if a much better tree overall. So let's get started in getting this work done. All right, so here's where I'm at. We have a front in there somewhere at the moment. I've used my guy wire and bent it as much as I can. You can see this branch here was all the way up here, remember, and now it's down here. But I've fully wired this large pom-pom branch that was there before. So I put it in place, roughly wiring all the branches, giving you different layers on the tree, and creating a really nice base to start with the framework. So this is one area. It's almost like a tree in itself. That's what I was trying to go for. So really cleanly defined lines. I will clean up as always, a bit further more as I go. But then once I get the overall shape in place, then I'll adjust these branches as I need. But at the moment, that's a well-placed, structurally wired, all-up branch that's in the right spot, in the right place. I like the movement. There's not much I can do about you probably can't see it, which is good because it's hidden by the foliage. About trying to bend this much more. It's very heavy. I'm not really going to be able to pull that down too far. I've been able to wire everything down and create almost like a waterfall effect with the branch, which achieves a really good result. But trying to pull that further down, I don't want to risk cracking it, because when they're heavy like that, they could split at the base where the trunk is. So always be careful. I might put a guy wire in just to bring it around eventually, but that's all the last few decisions. It was more now wiring everything up and seeing where it all fits. Now we're going to work on, there's a back branch there I need to work on. I need to work on this branch. Probably have it up a bit higher, this one. I want that one to be the lowest and longest. This one's a bit shorter and more in, and then we'll keep wiring. So it's all wiring now. Haven't really cut off any major branches. Lots of little trimming here and there because some branches were too long. But other than that, it's purely wiring and positioning in, putting in place all the branching, layering, etc. So the tree's coming along pretty well here. I've wired pretty much all this side as well, trying to create the pads as well in that section. I've slowly taken a few branches off this area. I'm still not 100% happy with it. Apologies for the wind. So they're still not 100% happy with that. This side's pretty good. Also, a lot of the back branches have been wired and put in place. Just going to tweak a few. That's looking good too. Now I'm up to these two apexes. It's kind of apexes because, not really, but they're kind of going straight up at the moment. This is probably the main apex, and they've got another branch in here. Now this secondary branch here, I'll bend down and start to fill in all the areas that have got lacking branches. So what I'm thinking is I might bend that down into this way a little bit, and start to then wire out a lot of the branches and fill in all the empty gaps in around there and towards the back. So that at least gives you, the idea that it's all pretty full and interesting and got branching, etc. Then I'll use this branch here to pretty much create a little apex in here. Should be quite a short bit. I'll probably shorten it quite a bit, have a lot of these branches wide to the back to thin it out quite a bit, and then have all these ones creating a small apex in here. Do want to create the nice symmetry with the tree. Should be still look quite good. Bring it back to the front for you guys. So having that, fill in the gaps in the back, having some of these branches fill in the gaps in here, and then wiring out these to make an apex. And that'll be the tree done. So I'm going to get working on wiring all these up and positioning them, and we'll come back and look what it looks like. Okay, so I'm up to the point of now wiring this apex. Now I did complete wiring on that back branch that I was telling you about in here. It was a secondary kind of apex that I've been able to fan out and put branches in all different spots that needed to have the gap filled. So that's what I've done. Now we come back to the front, and it's this area here that hasn't been wired. So now it's a matter of just putting all the branches into the spots that are kind of bare and really compacting this apex, and creating a nice helmety kind of rounded apex. So that's what I'm going to do now, but I'll start on the lowest. Now there is a bit of a gap in here, so there's a bit of a gap in here. So I might push, just so you can see, I might push this guy back here. And when they're long, you kind of got to compact them by, bending them on each other, so snaking them a little bit. And by compacting them that way, you should be able to reduce the length and still create a nice little foliage pad. Anything that's now going downwards, I pluck. Hopefully my arm's not in the way. So I've kind of filled this gap in here that needed to be filled. Now there's a bit of a gap down here now. Still the same process of compacting. I'll go backwards and come around. Should be able to put this in place. It's just in there, I reckon. And he comes around, swings around. Lots of foliage hanging down. So it's not too bad in this section now here. That's looking good. I did want to take care of the apex at the back. So there's a couple of back branches that I just have to position. Now, I didn't fully wire all the sub branches on these back ones. I mean, these higher ones, there's a few sub branches in here. I just wasn't sure how much I'm going to keep of that. So that's why I didn't all wire it all. We'll get back to that. Now let's have a front on look so I can see what's happening. Now there's a bit of a gap in here. And then there's these. So I probably have to use these two to make part of the apex. So I probably can push these ones down into this gap in here. So that's what I'm going to try and do now. So it's really about filling the gaps, but also not trying to be on the same parallel lines with the other branches. So I was trying to get, I didn't want to be in line with this branch exactly, but I'm going to have to try and either go below it or above it. I think I might go below this branch, the height. So if it's just a bit below, then So we'll kind of leave it there for now. So it should just be below, just below that. Now I'm just going to see, there's a bit of a gap in here, so I might push this one back there, this branch back in here, see if this works. Might have to go upwards a bit with that branch. And then I'll use this branch to go downwards into this gap here. Now, some things are just a little too long, so start to reduce. Missed a bit of wire there. It's starting to come together pretty well. I missed a bit of wire there on this branch, but it's okay. So now we're kind of getting all this section all right. Nothing's really on the same plane, I guess they call it. Now I'll just keep going up as I work my way through. So now there's always the tricky part of creating an apex. So now really need to make this as nice and full as I can with the branches I have. So again, keep following the same process, create pads, reduce anything going downwards. So kind of got a nice little layer in here now. So I've got this layer here. So if that's the front, that's a really nice position branch. That'll be right there. Now it's the hardest bit is these branches, using them to create the full helmet. Let's have a go. Just want to move that one out of the way. So it's very important to try and compact all these branches because they're quite long. So I've got to really think of how I'm going to reduce the length of them and make them interesting as well. So it's done well. Just come out all right. Now this was a really long branch that I pushed back, waved my way through and brought it back around and put it in here. So it should hopefully over time grow more branching and create a much better branch. Okay. Not sure about this. There's a back branch in here. I'm not sure where I'm going to put it just yet. I'll leave it there for now. There's a little one there. I'll push down. So now I've kind of got these two in kind of at the top. So I'll just put a back branch in here. This branch can probably be in here. I'll need some wire on this one too. See, I did forget. All right, now. So you can see how we've come along really well, creating this nice apexy part. A bit more wire here and there, sub-branching, but let's try this out. So I never create an apex with just one branch. Usually it's multiple branches creating an apex. So you can see compacting all those branches, bringing them back on each other. I do need to clean up and remove some pads, but foliage, there's a bit of, now there's things are not in place exactly where you want them, so we're going to work on those, but I think you get the idea of where I'm at now with this tree. I will need to clean up a lot of the foliage, but that's a nice looking tree right now. I'm not 100% sure on this side, it's a little bit wide for me. I'm going to see what I can do with this area. I'm not 100% happy. Really happy with this side of the tree. This apex just needs cleaning up, and I'll do that with a bit of wiring, trimming underneath, and I'll show you what it looks like. I just want to have a look at this side and figure out what I'm not happy with, and I'll come back and we'll go through it all. All right, everyone, so here's the final product of the restyle of this Shimpaku juniper. Much more refined tree, lots of wire on this tree, of course. It was more of a thinning out of that area. I still would like to thin out some of these branches in here over time, get that reduced a little bit more. I think that's what was playing on me. I did put a guy wire pulling that just a bit tighter to the trunk. I think that fixed up most of the issue there. Otherwise, really nice. The back probably needs a bit of reduction. I'll show you that in a minute. Just it needs time to come back as well a little bit. But other than that, it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the result of restyling this tree. Let me try and do a spin. So you can see it's quite deep still in the back. I'd like to reduce that over time. I'm not worried about the jins and shari for now. We can always work on those in the future. But for now, it's all about the styling of the tree and what it looks like. That's just a roll of wire going down. And there you go. So pretty happy with that result. Just a matter of trying to get this tree to recover really well now. The apex is really good. A lot of the branching on this side is really good. So really happy. So hope the customer of mine enjoys this tree now. He's probably going to be shocked at how it's turned out, because it was a totally different tree before. Remember, most of these branches were right up here. The tree was a lot taller, and now we're actually looking at a much more compact tree. Shows off the beauty of the tree and the nice movement of the trunk. It's slender. It doesn't really impact. It doesn't have to be a massive trunk, you know what I mean? So it's quite a slender trunk, but it's got a lot of foliage, but it makes it look like an older tree. So such a slender trunk that, you know, how does it support so much foliage? But anyway, also think about. But overall, really nice, compact tree now. A bit more length on this side, a bit shorter on this side. I think just time to develop some areas that are a bit lacking in branching, but we'll get there. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and see you soon.